What's up, guys? We are back with another review, taking a look at something that's not brand new, taking a little bit of a detour and just talking about something that I got recently that is still kind of new that I wanted to review. So we're taking a look at the Bandai Tamashii Nation's Robot Spirits, or Robot Tamashii, MS-14JG Gelgoog Jager, the Gelgoog Jager from Gundam 0080 War in the Pocket. That's a mouthful. So we've got another figure in this particular line. I've done the Camphor last year, so this is kind of a follow-up, although this guy is not nearly as important of a suit in the show. It's just something that is in there, so I figured I'd snatch one up. We've got him here in the kind of standard Robot Spirits packaging for the line. So you've got the figure there on the front with the version anime subline tag. You've got the name, and then you've got the product shots all down the side that give you all of the accessories this guy comes with, and then the back of the box gives you a shot of the figure kind of in a landscape from the show, along with a little bit of a demo of how he moves around as well. So let's do it. Let's pull this guy out and take a look. And here it is out of the package, our Robot Spirits Gundam 0080 Gelgoog J figure. So this is another suit in my all-time favorite Gundam series, War in the Pocket, and I think this makes number 4 that I've gotten a hold of recently. I've only reviewed one so far, the Camphor, last year, but this guy was one that was kind of high on my list because I do like the design for this suit, and then, I mean, it's from this show, so I'm interested in getting suits from this particular show. And yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff going on here. There is some slightly frustrating things about this figure, but he also is pretty solid, and he moves surprisingly well for being so incredibly disproportionate when it comes to size. He's relatively normal on top, but I mean, the bottom of this figure is so incredibly wide and beefy that it does present a few challenges. So let's see how he moves around first. Like I said, he is surprisingly agile. You've got a head that can swivel. He can look down because the actual innards of the neck, I suppose, will lift up with the head, so he looks down, and then he can also look slightly more up as well. So there's a pretty good range of motion there, and of course nothing gets in the way of this figure, so he moves just fine. You can pop the crest off, and then there's a little nub here that allows you to move the mono eye around, so you can swivel that to kind of move with the figure. And it's a little tight. I kind of have trouble doing this myself, so you can pop it back and forth and then just sort of recenter it. But it's kind of cool to give you that idea of it looking around and kind of scanning the area, so that's a neat function. The arms go out at the shoulder. The shoulder pad actually comes up with it. There is sort of a butterfly joint, so let me pop him around. You can actually see the inside of the joint kind of ejecting itself from the torso, so it helps it to reach around the body. Then the arm can swivel all the way around. There is a bicep swivel, if you want to call it that. You've got crazy movement on those elbows, though, because there is this plate here that will kind of move out of the way and kind of get sunken into the forearm. So he goes all the way up. I mean, that's as high as an elbow is going to go. So there's nothing there that's getting in the way. You've got rotation there as well, and then you've got ball pegs at the wrists. So you've got a little bit of tilt action on these, and then full rotation. At the torso, he does have a crunch. Surprisingly, there is a crunch hidden in all of the just the build here. So around this centerpiece, the actual torso will kind of move with it, and then he twists, and you can get him to do a little bobble side to side, but not much. He does go backwards a smidge, but he mostly just has a lot of tilt forward, and then pretty much full rotation, but you will start to sort of scrape the sides of the skirt piece there, which does, of course, move. So these flaps will help you to move the legs around. The legs go out about that far, so not great, but he's got, like I said, he's got a lot going on down below. There are drop-down hips here. The legs kick forward, but you do have to move this pad out of the way, so kick them forward, and then they kick backwards up until they hit the back skirt piece here. You can rotate a little bit up there. You've got your knees, which do go up back about that far. Of course, they would go back further, but they hit the skirt piece again. And then you've got down at the ankles, you've got rotation, you've got hinge up and down, and you've got toe articulation as well. But you've also got some pretty crazy rocker for such big feet and cuffs, I suppose is the best way to describe him. So he does move pretty well. The only real hindrance on this figure for me is at the torso, just because he's not as mobile there as he is at the rest of the body. But the figure, in a general sense, for being so beefy and kind of clunky almost, moves exceptionally well. Now, as far as the aesthetics on this figure goes, I've already kind of mentioned that it's a beefy guy. It's a beefy, heavy-duty mobile suit. There is a lot of bulk to it, which I mean, frankly, is kind of a telltale Xeon thing when it comes to the Gundam storyline and how they build their mobile suits. They're all kind of beefy and bulky, which I do like. It's definitely a unique look. Of course, there are various Gelgoogs. The J or Jaeger version is not too different, except for maybe a few little variations like the tanks back here. But I do, in a general sense, like what's going on, as is the case with pretty much all Robot Spirits figures. This guy is about 5-ish inches tall, so he's a little bit smaller than your average 1/12 scale figure. Of course, this is not in that scale because it's a mobile suit and not a person, but I do love this action figure from an aesthetic and design standpoint. I like all of the little greebling marks. Honestly, there's a little bit less on this than average because of the fact that it's an anime version, but you've got, like, the line work, the little pegs that stick out, the Vulcan cannons on the forearms, and then just the line work that runs through it along the panels and then up through the rest of the torso here. The inner workings of the neck here are really nicely done, and you can see some of them. You can't see all of them. And then, of course, the inside of the eye is a really nice touch with the removable piece, with the crest, and then the big fin that's up there. There isn't a lot of paint on this figure, which, I mean, it's not really surprising. It's a robot, so it doesn't necessarily need it unless, of course, it's got some embellishments. So the majority of this figure is really just a lot of plastic that's layered on top of each other. There are a few things, like this crest here. You've got a little red here, and then down on the crotch, and then, of course, in like the thruster vents areas, things like that on the back of the thrusters, and things like that. Not too many other fine details because, again, it's a robot. Well, not a robot, but it's a mobile suit. You know what I mean? And it's just a cool looking figure. That's pretty much what it comes down to. There is some frustration with his design in one key area, and it's not an accessory, really. It's a thing you have to attach. This little antenna piece, you get 2 of them because it's so damn easy to lose this thing. This thing pops into the back here, and every damn time I touch this figure, I feel like it's just about to fall out because it really doesn't sit in there all that well. Honestly, I'm surprised that I got it in there so easily. So you've got that little extra thing. I do like it. It adds a little bit of just a little bit of asymmetry on the figure. What's, of course, a little bit different about this particular version of this suit, outside of the fact that this one is pinkish, is the fact that it does have these propellant tanks on the back, which are articulated. They have little pegs that pop in there, so you don't have to use these. These are like long range propellant tanks to keep it in service longer, so they just pop in or out. I would urge some caution when you're popping them in, just to be on the safe side, because those pegs are kind of small, but they do stay in really securely. They add a little bit of oomph to the figure as well, because they give him a lot more on the backside, outside of the fact that he does have this incredibly large mobile suit butt skirt thing. But it's a different look. It gives it just a little bit of different shelf presence when compared to a bunch of other figures. So outside of the fact that, I don't really care for this little antenna thing and its implementation, I'm pretty happy with the finished product. It's an imposing looking figure in the realm of Gundam Robot Spirits. Now, as far as accessories goes, this guy comes with, I'd say, average for Robot Spirits, which of course is to say that he comes with a decent amount, especially compared to most other action figure lines, but he doesn't have a ton. And that's mostly because of the fact that this thing doesn't really do a great deal in the show. He really just flies around and shoots stuff. So we've got one of the trees with hands on them. So you've got 10 total hands for this guy, various types of gripping hands, various types of trigger finger. So trigger finger with the finger on the trigger finger relaxed hands, style pose hands, things like that. So you've got the little tree, and then you've got 10 total hands for this guy. We've got 2 of the antennas that I've already mentioned, so you got 1 and then an extra, and you've also got a replacement / extra crest in case you break or lose that one, because they tend to give you the little fragile things extras of, just in case. We've got some thruster effects. We've got 4 for this guy. He has a lot of thruster ports, so you can pop these guys into the back like this, and then you can make it look like he's blasting off, which I love these. I think they're great. Some figures come with a lot, some figures don't come with any, and then this guy comes with 4, which is a pretty decent number. It's probably enough to really get the point across. And they are, of course, kind of translucent light blue. They're not blue, but they're definitely got a blue tinge to them, and then they've got those little angled pegs at the tip. So I really dig those. It's kind of an extra bonus thing, really, because they're not useful all the time, but it's fun to actually mess around with those. And then we've got his big heavy duty beam rifle here. There's not really any paint on it except for the scope. You've got the green scope, which is pretty symbolic of what it looks like in the show. And this is basically the thing that we see it use in the show, is this gun. It does supposedly have a beam saber somewhere in the suit, but it doesn't use it in the show, so you don't get one here either. And then we do have an energy effect for this, which I really like. You got this big monster right here, so you can pop that in, and it's got this big heavy-duty yellow clear energy effect piece blasting off, which has kind of the trails backwards, and it's got some size to it as well. I mean, it's more than half the height of the figure, and then the gun is about 2/3 of the height of the figure. So this thing total has got some shelf presence, and you probably really need to use two hands on the figure to actually hold this up because this thing is kind of heavy. So he does have a decent amount of stuff. Don't get me wrong, he's certainly not lacking in any way, but he definitely is kind of middle of the range for current level Robot Spirit stuff. He has a lot, but there's a lot more figures out there that have a ton compared to this guy. So yeah, there's really not a lot that I'm going to begin to complain about when it comes to this figure. I just like it. I think it looks really good. It has decent size and bulk. It moves really well for all of that bulk, except for maybe in the torso and then a little bit in the hips area. My only real true annoyance with this figure is it's just that little antenna. It constantly wants to fall out on me. And again, I'm afraid I'm going to lose it, and I'm going to lose both of them. That'll be my luck. I'll lose both of them. But otherwise, this guy does look really fantastic. It's a nice looking mobile suit. It's of course pink, so it's a little bit different from say your standard ones, and it'll fit alongside my other 0080 figures, and that's kind of what I was going for here. It's just a bonus that this thing happens to be so much more fun than I expected it to be, because I was really concerned that it was going to move kind of like a brick, but it definitely does not. So that's going to do it for this look at the Bandai Tamashii Nations Robot Spirits Gelgoog J figure. Let me know what you guys think. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and until next time.